Welcome to the Year City Podcast, where we get to know our neighbors so that we can be good neighbors. I'm your host, Aaron Williams. And before we get to our guest today, we're going to say a thank you to this episode's sponsor, Mordecai Sports. Mordecai Sports is a locally owned and operated and has been doing business in Gardendale since 1985, focusing on sporting goods and equipment. They offer on-site monogramming, garment decorations, and they are an official dealer for top brands such as Adidas, Mizuno, Wilson, Easton, Rawlings, Allison, Badger, Champro, and many others. They even specialize in sublimated uniforms. So if you need top quality sporting equipment or customization, check out Mordecai Sports in Gardendale at 809 Main Street or give them a call at 205-631-4172. Today, I'm joined by Chad Eads, who is a teacher and head football coach at Gardendale High School. We're going to talk to him about the sporting program at Gardendale High School, what the high school is involved in, and sort of how he followed his passion to be in football. Chad, thank you for coming on to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So let's jump right into talking about the school system first. What is something that the Gardendale High School offers to its students?
Well, there's a lot. There's all ranges of things for the kids through athletics. There's 13 different sports that meets most of their goals, and we try to add more as we go. I know we added flag football this year for the girls, and that was started out small, but I think it's really going to be something that includes another segment of our student population, and along with that's our band. Our band's a big part of the school. The dance line and color guard, they're called the Rockettes. I can't say dance line.
Got to get it right.
That's right. You better get it right. And then cheerleading and all the same activities that we all grew up with in school. But then the different student organizations, they do a big fundraiser every year at Christmas with Christmas Visions, and that involves a large part of our student population also.
So there's just a bunch of different activities, and it sounds like most of them are like physical, some type of outdoor activity, some type of participation in the sports that are going on. Are there activities for like chess club to be?
Yes, there are
things like
different
that.
Clubs that and it's amazing the different interests in a large school.
Mm-hmm.
There's always, no matter what your hobby or interest is, there's always someone else that has that same interest, and we try to meet those goals. And also, our school has what we call auto tech, but it's everything to do with the mechanics side of that, the body work.
Is it like a lab for that?
It's a separate building, and kids go and they learn to be welders. I mean, it's a fascinating building to go in.
So like vocational arts.
Yeah, vocational. And so it's that part, the auto part, and then welding. And it gives those students an opportunity. And in all those different activities, the majority of the kids are not that excited about math and English, but it gives them that thing that they look forward to going to school for. Mm-hmm. And then they do the other part. So they get athletics and band and welding and all those other parts of things that they really do enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it gives them something to keep their interest.
Why do you think math and English are so boring?
Those are the two that I didn't. I'm a much better writer. Math was not my part. Now my wife and my son's a math teacher. My wife was a math major and is in banking, and then my daughter and I we're the writers. So they do all the math work and we do the writing.
Gotcha. Well, the Gardendale High School system is a part of the Jefferson County larger school system.
Yes.
What does that relationship look like, and how does that influence Gardendale?
Well, in my time here, and of course, that's when you're part of a big system like that, you have to understand that the system is trying to do the best for each school. We're not the only school, we're not the only high school. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to do the part to make each school be as good as it can be. But then in a community, we're one of the schools that's we're named after the community that we're in, and that's and I think that's the thing that ties us together with the city of Gardendale, but the county, it's as large as it is. I've been amazed at the relationships that I've built with with people who have much bigger worries than just Gardendale High School, but they're always there to help, always there to help us and support.
How do you make sure that that relationship stays prosperous for both the Jefferson County system and for the Gardendale system? Because it seems like there's an opportunity here
Oh,
for
yeah.
people who don't live in Gardendale to have more of an influence than the people who do.
Yeah, and part of that relationship is, it starts with I think there's such a good relationship between the city government with Mayor Hoagland and all those people. And then and there's a lot of connections between the city of Gardendale and Jefferson County school system.
Mhm.
There's a good bit of our employees live out here, whether they work at Gardendale High School or not. There's a connection to Gardendale, and it is could sometimes be a fragile relationship. But I
Mhm.
think just the honesty of each other, hiring people that care about the school they're in and understanding our role in the school and the community. As far as being the athletic director, to me, the role of athletics is something that it's there to give the children the things they learn through athletics, learning how to work hard, learning how to be committed, learning how to be a dependable teammate, and all those things. But it also is a source of pride for the school. So if those things go well, the school day is a little more exciting. The kids are a little more excited about school. As the school goes, then it's a representative of the city of Gardendale. Even though we're not city of Gardendale schools,
Mhm.
it still is the biggest thing in town, and it very much represents this town.
Gotcha. Let's talk about a parent's role a bit
Yeah,
in education.
yeah.
What's your perspective on how involved a parent should be in a child's education?
And it depends on the age of the child. As they get to, for me, I deal with everything 9 through 12th grade. Well, the ones in the ninth grade, you expect to talk to parents a little bit more and to explain the schedule. And part of that is they're kind of new to the high school, and you
Learning how the
understand that,
process
yeah, they
goes.
understand how a schedule works. And then you have to also explain, hey, it's time for your son to be the one who comes home and tells you. That doesn't always go that smooth, but you spend a lot more time with those parents because it is the first time. And then as they get older, not to break them away from their parents, but as I tell our players, hey, your mother has a lot more to worry about than if you have your baseball glove at school. It's your job to take care
Mhm.
of all those things and let mom just enjoy coming to see you. Then her job is to come see you play the sport, not to make the sport possible for you.
So it's a little bit like during high school, there's a transition that's
Yeah.
happening from, hey, your parents used to take care of everything
Oh,
for
yeah. They
you.
did everything.
And so now it's your turn to start taking care of stuff to alleviate those responsibilities off of your
Well,
parents.
and they're at the age, and for I deal most of the time with boys, and if moms will keep taking care of them, boys will keep letting their mother take care of them. I would do the same thing, and my mother's older than their mother. That's the role and the nature of a mother to make sure her boy's taken care of. But it's also the time for the boy to understand these things I take care of myself,
Yeah.
and start remembering the schedule and going home and telling mom and dad what the schedule is. And
Yeah.
and that's sometimes that's a little difficult transition
But it's
time.
important
It is. It's very
because
important.
you know, as much as it sounds like a contradictory statement, compassion can be a vice.
Oh, yeah.
You can be too compassionate with somebody to the point where you're hurting them.
Well, you're doing everything for them, and then and they're pretty close to the time that they're gonna be off on their own with no one to take care of them. And
Yeah.
and and, and that's a hard time. I have children of my own, and it's very hard to see them have a difficult day, and I understand that part of it. I think you need to be. It helps to be a parent, to be a coach, because you understand those struggles of we start our day at 6:30 in the morning. Before the age of boys who can drive,
Hmm.
that's pretty easy for mom and dad. But for the ninth and 10th graders, that's a difficult morning when they're getting up and they have little brothers and little sisters and trying to get all the things done
Yeah.
and get someone to work out at 6:30 in the morning. But I think there's nothing more valuable you can do for a young man than to get him to where he has to wake up and go and do things when he's not really maybe wanting to. He wakes up and he doesn't feel like it, but he has to do it anyway.
Yeah. You got to learn how to
Yeah.
sacrifice that
Yes. I learned how to do it.
comfort and everything. So, how can a parent have their voice heard in the education process? How does Gardendale High School evaluate feedback from parents?
Well, there's a lot of things that go on, and some as simple as there's a letter sent out that that's to the parents of kind of maybe some announced things of that have happened, things that are coming up pretty soon, just so you
Mm-hmm.
can make parents aware. There's I forget what we call it, voice cast, I think, where it sends every person in the school a message of what's happening, that keeps them informed on what's coming up. Because a lot of times that's the parents' complaint, is that their kid is going to wait until the moment of to say, hey, we've got so and so going on. I need to go to school tonight. And if you can give the parents a little heads up, makes their life a little easier. And then, then just being able to have communication, whether it's with our counselors or with our assistant principals. And I know them all personally, and I know they can call the school, and they're going to get a return phone call, and then just the communication with the classroom teacher of, hey, your child's not doing well. Hey, your child's doing great. And that gives the parents, early in the semester, if a child's struggling, that teacher can call and say, hey, he's having a hard time with this subject, and they can get help. And sometimes it's just a matter of getting a little more attention out of the student,
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of lines of communication, and I think that teachers today are used to that. When I was in school, I don't remember teachers talking to mothers much other than the first day or the night you went to meet your teacher, and we still do those things, but teachers now are much more accustomed to making a phone call, to sending an email,
Mm-hmm.
and staying in communication.
Having that point of contact.
And having that contact. And I think it helps students when they know, hey, this teacher will call my mom, and that little part of they're not just going home and mom and dad assume everything's going well at school when it's not. And so I think there's just different lot of lines of communication.
Gotcha. So you think that it's really just sort of informing them of the schedule and just
That,
keeping
and
them
then just
keeping them
an
up to
up to
date on that?
date of what their child's progress.
Yeah.
I know the maybe there's a complaint that I've heard throughout my career from parents is that, hey, my child comes home and he says everything's great, and there's parents that are busy with other children, and by the time their child's in high school, they're expecting that child to take care of his business.
Yeah.
And the child comes in, oh, everything's great, I'm doing great in math, and parents are busy with other things, and they're busy with jobs, or they work night shifts, and they don't have quite the time to sit down and go through homework, like
Yeah.
like it was when I was a kid. They're a little more busy. Moms aren't home quite as much. They're working. Their dads are busy or traveling or working night times, and I think just that that email of what's going, most time is what's going wrong, but a lot of times you get the the email of or the call of what's going right. I have to make a lot of calls to parents about what's wrong, something that's wrong. But also, it's kind of nice to send an email and say, hey, your son's doing a great job of this.
Yeah.
And that builds that relationship of trust, that the parent realizes that you care about their child and not just getting a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So when you have a student that's coming in, it's a brand new student, what's your approach to sort of connecting to them
Yeah.
and helping that student sort of build that relationship that you were talking
Yeah.
about?
Well, yeah, I think you've got to find a common ground with them, and you got to make them realize that. I know that's throughout my coaching career, I've had to move my children a time or two into new
Mm-hmm.
school systems, and there was always a teacher or a coach that they met early, and that they were kind of drawn to, that gave them someone that they knew they could go to immediately. A child moving into a school, they feel totally alone. And I think there's got to be that teacher that recognizes that, and at least making sure hey, that they know where they're going, they know who to go see, and then for a student, really, it takes about 3 days. They learn their way around, they make a friend, and they start finding out. I think, but just talking to them about the school, one of the things I encourage them is to make friends slowly, is what I always tell them.
Why is that?
Because you're new, and people and other kids are sometimes drawn to the new, and that's not always the person you need as a friend. So wait and really find out what that person's really like before you become a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
And don't just because you're new and don't know each other, don't assume that he or she are your new best friend in the world. Make sure that that's the person you truly want to spend your time in high school with.
Hmm. It's interesting to me because I haven't been in a school setting in a long time, and I graduated 2006,
Mm.
and all of this stuff. It sounds like things that I, as an adult, realized, but at the time I didn't realize were
Oh yeah,
intentional.
yeah.
That the adults around me were intentionally making these types of decisions
Well,
and
it's
stuff
amazing
like
to me,
that.
even in a large school, how many it can be everything. And there are students with very big problems in their life, whether it's a family situation, an illness in a family, things that have come into their life and it's amazing how many teachers and administrators can be involved in a good way, and you think it would just be, well, that's not our business, but
Hmm.
it really, teachers aren't those kind of people. That it is they do see it as their business, not in a snooping around, getting information way, but in helping a young person, uh, get through a difficult time, whether it's the loss of a parent or the just all the many things that, it's a lot harder, I think, to be a good young person today than it was when I was in school. When I was in school, there were no cell phones, there was no social media. I don't know what my friends did on a Friday or Saturday night.
Hmm.
There wasn't
You
somewhere to
weren't always
go.
in constant
Yeah, weren't in
contact with
constant
everyone in your
contact, and
life.
and seeing how amazing my friends' lives were, or knowing that I was left out of a party. I may have been left out every Friday and Saturday night. I don't know, but I think it's for a good young person, it's a little tougher today. There's so many things coming at them, that on an everyday basis they're confronted with, and it takes so much more now to remain a good young person.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. That this, people used to joke, "Oh, that's going on your permanent record," and it's like the permanent record is real now. It's out there.
Yeah.
Anything that you've ever
Well,
uploaded
so
or
many things,
stuff
and
like
I know
that.
I asked our football team a while back. I said, "How many of you have had someone tell you that high school are the best days of your life?" And they all raised their hand. And I said, "Well, they lied to you." I said, "The best days of your life are coming when you meet the person you're going to marry, when you go to college, when you have a child of your own, when you get the job you want, when you buy your first house." I said, "But the decisions you make during this time of your life could keep those things from coming around. Those are the best days.
Hmm.
Getting married, having your own children, that's much better than high school. Getting the job you want and buying a home, that's better than any day in high school. But if we're not careful in how they live their lives during ninth through 12th grade, they miss out on those things."
Yeah, sort of like building the foundation is not necessarily the most fun part, but it's very important to being able to live in the house comfortably.
Well, I think we forget sometimes that high school is practice for the real world. I mean, I know there's parents and people that get upset over dress codes. And I think, well, we're getting them right up to the point where they're going into the workforce, and we're teaching them that there is no dress code in the world. There is a dress code in
Yeah,
this where there's a certain way you have to present yourself. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you, but there's a certain way that you have to, of being on time, being properly groomed. All those things are still matter to the people who are going to hire you and pay you money.
yeah. It's important that other people, can look at you and
Mhm.
you're taking care of yourself,
Yes.
right? And that's an aspect of it, is teaching these students to take care of
hmm
themselves and present themselves well and stuff
Well,
like
learning
that.
how to talk to people, how to,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I think you have to do. You have to put them in those situations, with through athletics. A lot of times that's kind of forced on young men. They got to do an interview. They got to talk to somebody, meet people, and you can tell at first they're a teenager and they do it that way, and then but as the more and more they do that and are exposed to that, the more comfortable they become presenting themselves.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's not an easy thing to do. I know for me it wasn't. That's not an easy thing to do. I had to be put in those situations, and a lot of them were like me growing up. I was not going to voluntarily go in those situations.
Yeah.
I had to be. Someone had to push me in it.
Place you there.
Yes, had to put me there.
I kind of want to go back and visit something that you were talking about earlier. You mentioned teachers getting involved in a student's life if they have a family problem or if they have something going on like that. There has got to be some tact or some boundary that sort of guides how involved you should be. How do people measure how involved is too involved?
Yeah. And that is difficult. And I think for my son's a young teacher. He has to be very careful about his involvement. Sometimes his involvement is going to an older teacher or going to an administrator because he's 28,
Mm-hmm.
and his involvement could be seen in a different way than what my involvement could be. I'm seen as a grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
and I can come along and say, hey, this is going on, or a lot of times it's talking to a counselor, getting the right person there. I think sometimes
is it about trust?
Yeah, and having a way for that young person to know you can trust them is not I want to know your information, but it's that I want you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times in school, those are it sounds weird, but those are kind of the fun times of being a teacher and a coach is not when they have a big life changing issue, but a lot of times the things they come in with, it's where they look like the world is coming to an end, and you sit down to talk to them, and you almost laugh because you go, "Hey, well, just wait. In a few years, that's going to be your smallest problem."
Yeah.
But for them at that moment of their life, that is the biggest problem. But those days when you go home, you feel like you helped them with something like that. That's much bigger than football games. Those are days you go home and you go, okay, now I see why I do this, because that makes a difference. And we all remember that person that helped us through a minor issue or a big issue. And that's the way, being a teacher and a coach is the only way you can be remembered. Everybody can think of their favorite teacher. There's not a person on earth that we say, whether you love school or hated school,
there was somebody who was a mentor.
Yes, all of us can name at least one teacher that we'll always remember.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges? You're both a teacher and a coach. Mm-hmm. How do you balance that? What are some of the biggest challenges of being both of those?
Well, and now in my new position, I'm the athletic director and head coach, so I don't spend as much time in the classroom. Whole nother job. I try to help where I can in classrooms. Sometimes that's filling in for someone when they have a sick child. Also being around the school, because there's something about a coach that kids respond to a coach, someone that has the title coach. Mm-hmm. They still, whether they're involved in sports or not. So me being in the hallway, that seems to help. That adds a little, kids want to yell, "Hey, Coach Eads," and all those things.
That authoritative presence.
Yes, and there's something about a coach in a classroom that the discipline issues are fewer. And a good coach who's a good teacher is a great teacher, because he's able to. Those kids are automatically drawn to him or her because of the role they play after the school day's over. Yeah. And so that part of it is the time commitment. There's high demands on. We have 3 math teachers on our football coaching staff. Mm-hmm. Well, they spend their day, they get there early in the morning and work on football. Then they go to class for 4 periods a day. And then they come back and they go to football again. But then sometime before the next day, they have to get themselves ready for classroom again.
That's 2 jobs.
Yes.
It's 2 full jobs.
It's 2 very big jobs.
Yeah.
And they all have their own children and all this. So balancing that, how can I do both jobs well and be ready for both? And sometimes it takes some. I don't know a good teacher that doesn't do a lot of work at their own home. Mm-hmm. And on the weekends and all this. I know teachers it's easy to criticize teachers, in the world today, but I would like to see a lot of people come and do that.
It's easy
do
to
that
criticize
job.
anybody in the world today.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
so easy
Yes.
because you're far away from the problem. You're
Oh,
far
yes.
away removed from the decisions that are having to be made.
Well, it's become a pastime. It's become whether it's in coaching, you're accustomed to that. You expect the criticism, but it's almost it's a pastime for people. It's like it's a hobby
Hmm.
for some, and it's uh, it's easy to say, well, look how bad education is. But if you come and you went to a school and you watch, okay, this many show up each day, they get to school, they get fed. There's some type of issue every day with at least one,
Hmm.
whether two that don't get along or this one's had this problem.
Every
There's an
day's
issue every day.
every day something
Oh, yeah, something
bubbles up.
brand new. There's going to be, a sporting event that evening. Everyone's going to, get home safe and we'll come back and do it again the next day. I don't know many other groups that can do that, that
Hmm.
can bring in that many young people and get them through a day, get them fed, get them cared for, get them back home, hopefully learn something,
Yeah.
so it's not quite as easy as people like to say when you're standing up in front of a class of very different personalities.
Hmm.
It's not like Disney Channel where they're all sitting there wanting to learn.
Yeah.
There's the reality of some don't want to learn and you got to find a way to get to them,
Hmm.
and for a good teacher, that's kind of the challenging and fascinating part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you- I never took like sports or anything in
Yeah.
high school. I did some soccer growing up, and I was actually really curious about this answer or this question. How do sports help a student grow and learn? What's the importance of sports?
Well, I think it's there's so many things to that answer. For some young people, that's their reason to go to school. That's their they don't they show up because there's a football team. They show up because there's a basketball team or the band, whatever it is, and then so initially maybe they don't take their education quite as serious, but through that sport and hey, I've got to be at a certain level academically to continue in this activity,
Hmm.
and they're until they mature a little bit more, and now all of a sudden they understand the importance of that. Maybe there's a scholarship involved or it's a career involved in it, and they start seeing the value much more as they get a little older. And then just the most sports or activities, I know our band works many hours. There's some difficulty to it. And we don't have another opportunity for young people to find out, are they mentally tough enough to handle the challenges that'll come in life? I don't want them to go to combat. I don't want them
Yeah.
to fight in wars, but to go and, wake up on a hot August day when the majority of their friends are still in bed or going to the pool and they've got to go put on equipment and run up and down a field and lift weights and run the risk of being embarrassed on a Friday night or a game night, for
Hmm.
things going wrong or their team losing, and they go out and they have to commit themselves to their teammates, and a lot of them have never had to be depended on. I think that's one of the biggest things in all those activities is that there's someone depending on me. And for a
Mm.
young person, that's the first time they've ever been depended on.
Yeah.
That someone is for us to be successful, you've got to do your job. Nobody really cares how you feel. You've got to do it regardless. And I think as we get older,
And if you
because
fail,
yes,
everyone
and if you
knows it.
fail, everybody fails. And those guys, and you let somebody down, and because you're going to get to a point in your life where there's spouses and babies and jobs and things don't go quite as smooth as you imagine they would. And you
Yeah.
come home to a crying baby. And I tell ours, I said, at some point you're coming home to a crying baby and a crying wife. And you've had a terrible day at work, but you've got to be the one to fix it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing we do every day when we show up at football. Hey, not all of them want to be there at that moment. They've got their things that happen that day. And I think a lot of it too is they go through a day of school. They've been with friends. They've been with a lot of different people. Something's happened during that day. And now they got to come to football and do that job and forget about the things
Hmm.
during that 2 hour period
Yeah.
and go and do a job and forget about the other worries and then go back to that thing later.
So it sounds like it's sort of teaching young people the ability to self-discipline,
Yeah.
to sacrifice in the now for reward in the future,
Hmm.
right? And
Well, I think you're sacrificing for in all those things. You're sacrificing and committing to something that's unknown. The future of it's unknown.
mhm,
We started yesterday with our off season workouts. Well, our season won't start till August 19th, and it's an unknown. We may not win a game. We may win all of them.
yeah,
Maybe somewhere in between. Things could go wrong. There could be an injuries. There could be a lot of things could happen, but and we may not even get to that time. And but they're having to sacrifice for something that's very unknown, and it's going to take a lot of work to. It takes a lot of work to get to the start of it. Takes double that amount of work to get to the end of it.
mm,
So it's a lot of work involved, and a lot of things have to go your way, and some of you have to make it go your way. I
yeah,
think they learn how to do that.
yeah. I've never thought about it from that perspective of you were talking about the kids. This is the first time that someone else has ever depended on
Yeah,
them and
yeah.
stuff like that.
I mean, they've
That's a
had the
really
things where
great
mom and
insight.
dad, hey, dad wants you to help him rake the leaves.
Hmm.
Dad, they
But
depend on you to be a good kid.
the consequence of
Yes.
that is like
Yeah. Not
I have to
everybody
do it
else
later.
does.
You know what I
Yes.
mean?
And it's wrong in today's world how the criticism of a pro athlete is one thing. He's being paid to do that. The
Yeah,
criticism of a college athlete, well, okay, he's at least on scholarship, but still, he's a young man, a young person. But that criticism of high school kids is that's slowly starting to trickle down to the high school level,
mm,
where they're simply doing it because they want to be around their teammates. They
yeah,
want to be. I was reading a magazine today, and it said that they found in a study that kids played high school sports for the enjoyment and being around their friends. I thought, well, how much money was spent on that survey? I could have told you that it's been that way since the beginning of time.
yeah,
Kids hang out with friends who have like personalities and hobbies, and they do those things together and they
yeah,
have fun. That's the
yeah.
way it's always been. Yeah.
So are you thinking that people put too much pressure on on high school kids? You were saying about professional and college level, but for high school kids, you
Well, they
think
do,
too
and I
many
think
people, too much pressure?
it starts with when I was in high school, you played the sport because you loved the sport, and if you were one of the few lucky enough to get a scholarship, you got a scholarship. Very few did.
Yeah,
And then we've changed in the last few years where everyone believes they will get a scholarship. And it doesn't work that way. The numbers have never worked that way.
yeah,
They're very small. We've been fortunate to have quite a few of our athletes. February 2nd, we'll have signing day, and there'll be 12 to 13 out of all of our sports. But I think we put a lot of, we take the enjoyment. And I think it's a series of things. Sometimes it's parents,
mm,
and they're wanting their kid to get that scholarship. It's the ones who are recruitable. I think the colleges take the fun away. They're in the middle of recruiting and they're getting letters and calls.
yeah.
And we got a young man right now. He was offered a scholarship after his ninth grade year. He's hardly played high school sports without being recruited. Now that's
So for him,
exciting.
it's already a business.
Oh yeah, it's very much a business,
Hmm,
and we take away the enjoyment
hmm,
of playing and the reasons that you play
yeah,
high school sport. That's why it's the best level of high school sport. High school sports has not really changed that much. Pro sports have changed. College sports have changed just in the last year.
hmm,
To what its kind of main goal is. We don't have we're not trying to instill the same values in college sports as we do in high school sports. It's become much more of a business.
yeah,
And I don't want high school sports to become a business. It
right.
shouldn't be it's not the minor leagues of college sports. It's simply high school sports. And I think our coaching staff does all we can to expose young men for an opportunity of a scholarship, and all of our sports do. I mean, we're, like I said, we've got multiple kids signing scholarships
I mean, if there's
coming up.
opportunity out there
Yeah.
to be claimed,
Mm-hmm. And you want to
obviously,
do all you can. It is the coach's job. You'll hear coaches say, "Well, that's not my job," but it is your job. Because of the I couldn't do my job without the sacrifices of the young people that want to play that sport. They put a lot of time into it. And if I can do something to help them get a benefit from it, whether
Yeah.
it's some money for college, then that's the least I can do.
What do these other coaches think that their job is, if not to
Well, just
create
coach
success for the student?
well, just coach, and then if they're good enough, someone will find them. And
Mm,
somewhat that's true for the elite athlete. Those schools are going to find that kid.
hmm
But you got ones that are they don't have the resources. They don't have mom and dad can't take them to all the camps and all those things, and you got to be the one that makes the phone calls and writes the emails and does all the things to introduce that kid to the coaches that may be interested in recruiting him.
How do you think that coaches, teachers can preserve that culture of high school is about play, not about business? How can that culture be preserved?
Well, I think you got to keep talking to them about there is a benefit from it, and I would, and I'm probably different than a lot of coaches. We talk openly about recruiting. We give
hmm
them the facts of, hey, this percentage is gonna get a scholarship, and that doesn't mean you're a bad player. There's a lot of really good high school athletes that don't get scholarships. They're too small. They're
Yeah.
too whatever. That doesn't make you a bad athlete.
But there's only so
Yeah,
much
it's only so many.
opportunity out there.
Yes, and I think you got to talk to them about the reality of it, but then also understand. We don't want to. You don't want to say, "Hey, well, this is the reality. You have a very small chance, so don't even try." I
Mm,
think you go about it the other way. Hey, there is a small chance, but someone's got to be that small percentage. That small percentage is made up by people who made it work for them.
yeah.
And so we talk pretty openly about, hey, I want everybody on our team. I want every athlete at the school to get a scholarship. It's not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. But and then my thing to them is, as long as Gardendale athletics, whatever sport you're in, is your main focus.
hmm
Hey, if you're being recruited, that's fine, and go to camps and do all those things. But as long as you're coming here and you're totally committed to us and your teammates and you're doing all you can,
hmm
then I'll do everything I can to help you. But when you decide, hey, I'm just going to survive here. I'm already playing for that next team.
hmm
Well, now I'm kind of through with helping you with the recruiting because you've moved on from us. And I think that's the battle you fight as a coach, is the keeping them focused on what they're doing in the present time.
How do you approach, you were talking earlier about your starting your off season
Mhm.
workouts and stuff like that. How do you approach getting your athletes ready for a season?
There's a lot of steps to it. We started our workout program, and the
hmm
first few days are always kind of a mess because you're trying to get everybody in the right place. Uh,
And you have a wave of new
Yes, and,
students.
and you've got kids that play multiple sports. That's why we do so much. Or we got, I know, just on the football team, we've got 10 probably that also play baseball, another 4 or 5 that play basketball. So trying to make it possible for that kid to continue doing that.
hmm
Because you don't want to ever get to a point where they decide on one. High school is the time that you should be able to do everything. But you also have to physically prepare them to be able to do multiple sports, and that's through the weight room, so we try to, our boys that play football and basketball or football and baseball, they come to work out early in the morning, and then we get them out so we can get them breakfast and all those things. And then they're rested by the time they get to their afternoon practice. And then so it's a lot of weight training, a lot of running, and you kind of work through a process. You go through this time of year trying to get a little stronger to prevent injuries and
hmm
to get them ready for the physical toll that the sport takes on their body. And then you'll kind of get to spring training time, and that's a little more football, true football things. And then the summer is conditioning and getting yourself ready for the season. So it's kind of split up into those, to where the off season is a little more laid back, should be enjoyable. They don't stay after school, and then it gets a little more serious and as we get
Yeah.
closer.
So just sort of keeping it playful at the beginning, but not losing the focus.
Yeah,
Make
yeah,
sure that you're maintaining.
yeah. Because in a child's mind, hey, August 19th is 100 years away.
Yes.
But it's really, will be here very quick. And if we don't do the things now, it's to where people say, well, football especially has become a year-round sport,
hmm
and it's not a year-round sport. But for the physical demands of that game, you have to begin preparing. Some of it
Well,
is
fitness
young
doesn't
men
have an
who
off
no,
season.
it doesn't have an off season.
Yeah.
And there's young men that we have two that have had surgery. One's graduating, one's so part of their off season is getting back physically to 100% so they
Yeah.
can do those things.
Hmm.
And so some of it is repairing things left over from the season, and then getting them physically ready to, because the worst part of being a coach is a child being hurt playing that sport, and that comes with any sport. It comes with
Because
life.
there can be, yeah,
Yeah, and
be
they're competing,
potential.
and it's a physical game.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to just cast them to the wind and say, hey, that's what happens. You want to do the things that lessen the chance of that, because
Yeah.
we had a young man this year. We were probably had 3 games left, and he hurt his knee. Well, he's a senior,
Hmm.
and his season ends immediately. And you don't want that to happen. That happens sometimes.
And that can
Yes,
completely
but you want to do the
derail
things.
an
Yes,
opportunity or something that
yes,
they
it
had
could
lined up.
derail his future, and it changes so you don't want those things to happen. That's a sickening day for a coach when
Mm.
those things happen. Not just because, hey, you're one of your best players is hurt, but because that's a young person, some part of his body's injured.
Yeah.
That he's got to hopefully get repaired and get it back so he can, just nothing else but enjoy his life.
And one thing that you don't realize when you're young is that, yeah, that injury healed mostly.
Yeah, yes.
You don't
Oh,
realize that when you're
I
young.
tell my wife, I said I could stand and watch if I could just line up men that were my age in their 50s to mid 50s and just watch them walk. I can tell you which ones played football, but there's
Yeah.
nothing like that game. I said, but there is, and a little bit of that is a badge of honor for men. Hey, I got this injury when I was, the older you get, the better athlete you were when you're telling the stories. You were a lot bigger and stronger and faster
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
than you actually were. But then your injuries were always a little worse than but you played through this terrible injury. Y'all, the stories get a little bigger as you get older.
That's fun. That's fun. How do you take, let's say your athletes, something's going on and they're just underperforming in your
Yeah.
eyes? How do you approach that?
My approach to young people is the first thing, there's a reason that when you see a drastic change, there's some type of reason. It could be multiple things. And I think you've got to start building that trust with
Hmm.
them long before this comes up. And sometimes that's being completely honest with them. I'm sometimes brutally honest with them, with the way they performed, with the way
Hmm.
they're acting, with what's going on. But I also want them to know that, not to a point that they can't come and tell me what's going on in their life,
Yeah.
and to be able to help them. And sometimes it's something, it's a relationship issue. It's something that's hurting, that they don't want to, they don't want the trainer to know because they're afraid they'll miss a game. So there's multiple things that could be. And I think you got to have that trust that they know they can come tell you, and you got their true best interest. They may not like the decision you have to make, but
Hmm.
they know it's their best interest.
So it's about maintaining a relationship early on
Hmm.
so that later on, when you have the hard news or the difficult
Yes.
news, or you really need to shake them up, they
Yes.
trust you and
Mhm.
they're able to receive that.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's just like all of us in life, we become comfortable in our position, and we feel like, okay, I've got it made. And you got to constantly remind them somehow, that, hey, someone else can do your job if
Mm.
you don't do it full speed with all your effort. And I think you have to constantly be, I guess, challenge them. I think if the whole world worked like a football team, and everybody went to work
Yeah.
and they knew if they didn't do it 100%, someone was going to take their job immediately. That's the way it works in football.
Yeah.
If you go out and, hey, you can make a mistake today, and you can make a mistake in this game, but you can't make multiple mistakes. And one of your mistakes cannot be that you don't care.
Yeah.
If you ever give off the impression that you've lost interest, now for the sake of the team, we got to do something else.
Well, I think one thing that reality will hold you accountable, right? Like time will eventually hold you accountable, and reality will persist. And in football, it seems to be a little bit more immediate than in other
Oh yeah,
disciplines
yeah.
where you can get away with it for a while,
Hmm.
but eventually
Eventually, it's
reality,
going to catch up.
yeah,
Yep.
reality
Somebody is
will
going to be a little better than you, and someone comes along And and probably the challenge for high school coaches is you'll have the very good player, but there's no one as good as him, and so it's hard to motivate him because he can kind of go 3/4 effort and still be better than the others.
Yeah.
But it's hard the challenge is getting him to realize what he's missing out on. He's missing
Yeah.
out. There's very few of us on this earth that are elite athletes. And if you're elite, but you let yourself be mediocre, you've missed out on a lot. You've missed out on a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
to
Squandered your
yes.
potential.
Well, and to also to be at that level of a player, and other people won't have the natural physical skills you do, but you can cause them to play better. You can
Mhm.
cause them to do more by the way you do more.
Hmm.
If you're the best player on the team and you do the most, then the next one who's not quite as physically talented, he'll also do a little bit more. And the guy you play
You're
against will have to
bringing
do
everybody
more.
up with you.
Yes, and they miss that opportunity of learning how to do that, because I think there's not enough people like that in the world that can make others do more.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think if you let the best one be just like everybody else, he never learns how to be special. Yeah.
Hmm. I think that's very insightful. How do you deal with a student that has commitments not just to education, but sports, but they also have commitments to their family,
Mhm.
to jobs, to other types of extracurricular activities that are going on in their life? How do you make sure that a student is balancing their workloads,
Well, I
their
think
commitments?
like for instance, the ones that let's just start with kids that play multiple sports.
Yeah.
Well, we're in our all season. Well, I want them to be in there lifting weights, but they also play baseball. They also play basketball. And I want to make those two things. And I think that for this age, the coaches of those sports have to set the schedule. If a young man's a football player and a baseball player, and I want him there, and the baseball coach wants him there.
Yeah.
Well, now he's torn between the two biggest influences in his life. He doesn't want to disappoint me. He doesn't want to disappoint the baseball coach, but he's always in the middle.
Hmm.
So I've got to go to that baseball coach and say, hey, Johnny's playing football and baseball. I need him to do this. You need him to do that. Let's work out our
Yeah.
schedule. And that
Okay.
builds a relationship between the coaches. And also we can go to that young man and say, on these days you're here, on these days you're there. Now it takes the worry away from him.
We collaborated
Yes.
to align something that meets your needs,
And he
kind of.
doesn't feel like he's letting one of us down or choosing one over the other. He's doing what he was told by the coaches, and I think, and then it carries over. You want them to be involved in the everyday activities at school. Our sports don't interfere with the middle of the school day. So I want them to be
Yeah.
in those things. But then they have to also understand, if you're the type of person that can do a lot, you've got to do a lot well.
Mm.
You can't, well, just your presence is not enough. You're asked to be in that thing because of what they see in these other activities. We've got a football player. He's a really good football player, a good young man. He's the president of the senior class. Well, he was the president of the junior class. Well, he was chosen for those things because of what they saw somewhere else in life, and they're expecting him to come and bring that same attitude that they saw in athletics or in all the other things he has in his life.
Hmm.
They expect that same effort. So he's got to decide, can I go do this other thing with the same level of effort, because that's why they asked me to be here.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a special kid to do that. I think we can, and as a coach, understanding that my activity at the school is not the reason they open the doors every day. It's a big part of it. I think it's it's athletics is something that adds value to the school and to a community. It gives them something to rally around.
Everybody comes to watch
Yes,
and everything
everybody's
like
there.
that. It brings people together.
There's people that my wife and I joke that not all parents can name their kid's math teacher, but all of them can tell you my name because I'm the football coach.
Yeah.
There's people that know the name of my dog, but they can't name, but that's part of living in the South, and that's sometimes the fun part for me is that there's there's a lot put on, there's a lot of value put
Yeah.
on that game and how it represents a school in town. And I'm not sure that's always at a healthy level or not. But it's just, it's the reality of sports in the South, I guess,
Hmm.
but but realizing that there's much more, there's so many other things they can be involved in school. And I don't want them to finish school and say, I only played football or only played softball. Be involved
Yeah.
in all you can.
Hmm.
I think it's our job to make those schedules work.
Gotcha.
And each one's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
kid that plays football and basketball. There's one that he's in National Honor Society. He's got to leave some early in the mornings to go to meetings. We got to make those things work out.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of describing there's a responsibility of the student
Hmm.
to say, these are the things that I want to commit to.
Hmm.
And then there's a responsibility of the people who are accepting that commitment to balance
Hmm.
with each other.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So like, I was talking to Mike Holmes and he said that if they find out that a student is not performing well in school, they take away their hours.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's that balancing act in action of like,
Hmm.
hey, you don't have balance.
Yes.
You need to get back in balance before you can do this.
And we've had a young man. He was involved in everything at the school, but you kind of over time kept seeing everything get a little bit less,
Hmm.
and he had too much.
Hmm.
I said, "Hey, you're involved in everything. You're at every event.
You got to
I
learn to
said, that's
say
great,
no.
but you gotta take some things that you
Yeah.
can, because you're adding less and less value to each of those things.
Hmm.
Instead of finding 5 that you give great value to, you're trying to give half value to 10. And I think that's part of growing up and learning what you
Yeah.
can and can't do and what are your interests, and being able to say, no, I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
But I think it creates for an athlete who's involved in other parts of the school, it adds value to who they're playing for.
Yeah.
The athletics is sometimes too difficult. It's a difficult thing they do,
Hmm.
and now, but if they feel like they're playing for something bigger than themselves, and there's a school and they know the students and they know, not just their teammates, but they know the person they're in this club with and this math class, and they have a connection to those people. Now those commitments they make to a sport grow even more,
Yeah.
because now they've got something they're playing for. They realize who they're representing.
Yeah. 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 They get a bit of investment.
Mm.
Let's talk a little bit more about, or a little bit about you, how you got involved in this. What inspired you to get involved in all of this?
Well, and growing up, I kind of grew up in an area where we didn't have a lot of youth sports, but I grew up
Hmm.
in a neighborhood that had there were I have an older brother and a younger brother. I'm the middle of 3, and there were
Same.
yeah,
I
and
have
there
a
were
younger sister though.
okay, and so there were a lot of boys my older brother's age, and there were about equal amount my age. And we had all the whatever the season was, we
Hmm.
played it in somebody's yard or in the street. And that was about the time of the original Birmingham Bulls. We were big hockey fans. We played street hockey, and if somebody threw a couch away, that was a chest protector. The cushions, and so it was always, and there was baseball in somebody's yard and football, and so I never played organized sports until I was in the 9th grade. I'd never played on a baseball team, or just playing at school and playing in the neighborhood.
Yeah, just goofing off with your
Yeah,
friends and
and
stuff
really
like
kind
that.
of taught myself how to play them. Where I was talking to a coach today, I said I never had a coach, like a personal trainer coach. I just watched. If I wanted to field a baseball, I watched a major league shortstop, and I did it like he did.
Yeah.
And I just tried to do it like him. And so never really did. Then we got into high school and 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 played football and baseball. And football was just the things around football have always been. Friday nights are exciting.
Hmm.
You get that atmosphere around it. The team running on the field. All those things are still fun to me. The being in a locker room with a bunch of guys, that's still a fun environment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fun for me now at 53. So I played high school sports, had an older coach who had retired at one point. He became a minister and then came back into coaching. And
Hmm.
so at the end of his career, he was my coach for a year or two. And so I graduated high school and not sure what I wanted to do, knew I wanted to do something, and I went to work for an electrician,
Yeah.
and I was wiring houses, and I was going to school at night, but still not real sure. And I went by to see this coach, and I said, Coach, I don't really know what I'm going to do. But I was 18 or 19.
Feeling lost.
Yeah, I don't really know what I want to do. I know I want to do something, but I don't really know what it is. He goes,
Hmm.
"Hey, you're going to be a football coach,"
He just
and
told you.
and he was just that guy that if he said something, if he had told me I was going to be a ballerina, I would have going to be and
Yes, sir. I'm
yeah,
on it.
and he told me, and he's still a special person to me, and so I got into that. I went to Sanford and played football there. I walked on when they were just kind of starting football back, and played for Terry Bowden there. Finished there knowing I wanted to coach, and I got to be a graduate assistant for at Sanford for Coach Bowden. Then 1 year for Chan Gailey, then a year for Pete Hurt. Then I moved off and went to West Alabama for a year, and then
These words really changed the direction of your life.
oh yeah, just hey, here's what you want. And I always had I cared a lot for sports, but had never grown up in that. My parents were not involved in athletics or education, so I didn't. Like my son now, I've been a coach his entire life. That's what he knew he wanted to do. I didn't,
Hmm.
and my dad was a welder. I don't know the first thing about welding,
You got
and
a welding class at
yeah,
Gardendale
no, I
you could
keep
go
saying I'm going to go
take.
learn. I'm going to learn how to weld. Finally, my dad never would teach me, and so I knew I cared about sports, but didn't know how to go about getting to this point now.
Yeah.
How you get started in it, and and really, I think sometimes I stumbled upon the right people. I had some really
Mhm.
good people that I started out as a young coach working for. And then my first high school job was at Huffman High School for a man named Curtis Coleman, and Curtis was fascinating because he can coach any kid.
Yeah.
He can take any kid from any background, any color, any religious belief, and he can get them. They love him, but they're a little bit scared of him. Just that guy, but really cared about the kids that he coached. And cared about every part of their life,
Yeah.
and so I was able to be around him. Moved to Mississippi for a while and coached, and then 2007 I moved to Hoover High School and I coached there 11 years.
Hmm.
As an assistant. So I was an assistant coach for 25 years.
Hmm.
Had never been a head coach, and knew I wanted to be one day. But really, in the coaching world, if you get to 50 and you're not a head coach, you're kind of viewed as something's kind of wrong with you.
Uh-oh.
Because hey, if you wanted to be, you would have been.
Hmm.
But I was in a great place. My children were in school, and I knew, hey, one day they'll graduate.
So is it just like a seniority thing where it's like, hey, he's been doing this for so long, the opportunity is there, but he's not taking it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I never really looked for anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, I was happy with the job I had, knowing one day it would come time to do something different. And so the 2000, I guess 17 season, I'd kind of decided, hey, this is the year it's time to do something different. I need
Hmm.
to be a head coach and, and so this job at Gardendale became available. And I actually had a connection to the former principal, the principal who hired me. She retired not long after. I tell people I worked for her 2 months and she retired. And, but I had a connection to her through a friend.
Hmm.
And so we got to know each other and interviewed for the job and really didn't think I would get it, to be honest. And, I thought there was somebody else they'll want. And, so I interviewed on a Saturday and interviewed the second time on a Tuesday, and they called me Wednesday morning. And Thursday, I was standing in the hallway at Gardendale High School as the head football coach and athletic director. And so it was a whirlwind of over a few days. I
Yeah.
feel like I put a month into 3 days, and then all the things that you take on, no matter how long you've coached, you're not really ready for it. All the getting to know the new people, getting to
Hmm.
know a new team, figuring your way around, all the things that go in with it. And really it takes you, I'm now in year 4 and I feel like I'm comfortable,
Okay.
that I know where to go to for the answers now. And, so it's been 4 years of adjusting and figuring out
And
things,
learning.
but it's also when a lot of teachers, that was year 25 for me
Hmm.
of teaching and coaching. So where a lot of people are talking about, hey, I've got a few more years to retire, I've now started over. So there's a lot of people my age that are counting down the days to retirement. I'm
Just getting started.
I'm just getting started again. So
Yeah.
I'm blessed in the way that it worked out. It was the right time in my life to do this, and I think Gardendale's been a perfect fit for me and my wife. Just the way the kids have, not just the players but all the students. We don't have kids at home, so we can devote a lot of our time to being there for events and band competitions. And
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, you go to everything," and really, well, you don't realize how little I have to do. I don't have kids at home, so my wife and I, that's our free entertainment. We go to sporting events, and
Yeah.
it's I tell people I've been going to school since I was 5. I get paid to go to pep rallies and sporting events, and so that builds a bond. My wife's very much involved in what I do, and I can't really describe what she does for a living, but she's deeply involved in what I do.
All right.
And I feel bad about that sometimes. And then
She does something.
and then my son coaches with me, and our daughter's involved in athletics. She does some. She actually works for Gardendale First Baptist Church, but also works a little bit for UAB football. So it's
Yeah.
like the family business. So I went from a family that didn't make a career out of sports or education to a family that's what we all do.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that story.
Oh yeah.
What do you hope to impart to your students? What do you hope they've graduated, they're moving on to their next stage in their life, and they have taken something with them? What is that?
Well, and one of the things that seems a small thing is, of course, all the things we get from sports, the work ethic and all those things. You hope they see how that, as they get older, they see when that challenge comes along, they see they've done that before.
Yeah.
But the big thing is just a relationship back with someone. That they've got someone there's nothing like the relationship between a coach and a player. And even you've had throughout the 4 years or however long you've known each other, you've had some very exciting moments.
Yeah.
You've had some very difficult moments together.
It's got to be.
It's a unique relationship.
Yeah, because this person knows how much you're capable of, and they can tell you when you're not living up to that. So
sometimes you're the only person that tells them.
Yeah, and I've never thought of that before, but
and so
I
it's
can
a
see
very
that.
unique relationship, and one that's that you don't want to take for granted as a coach. You want them to know they can come back. I think there's something about being and as they get older, hey, they develop all those other relationships. They have spouses and their own children, and they don't need their coach as much, and that's what you want. But you want them to always know. That's always my message to them when the season ends for the seniors, that they've got somebody to come back to.
Yeah.
And I want to hear when there's something bad happens. I want to hear when something good happens. And I think there's a certain level of comfort that gives a young person when they got somebody outside of mom and dad they can go back to. I still think about relationship with Coach Hammock, the one who taught me into coaching.
Yeah.
And I've almost forgiven him for talking me into it. But he was so special. He actually married me and my wife. He did part of our wedding service. And I think where else do you get a connection like that without being, because as a coach, you see them at their very worst and you see them at their very best. And then they see me when I'm angry, and they see me when I'm joking, and they see all sides of me. And they, so it's a very special bond between a coach and players.
I can see that. I would, having never done sports to that degree.
It is. It's a unique thing, because you got such and sometimes we know more. You almost know more of certain details than their parents do. You know that the thing that kind of, it's amazing how I know my first year here, I was kind of figuring everyone out, and to me, that's a big part of coaching is I got to figure out what makes this one do more, what excites him, what makes him angry, what makes him, what's he excited about? Why is he doing this? They all have a reason why, and you got to find those things. But the first year is hard because you don't know them at all. But then as we get older, I can describe in detail
Now
the personalities of the boys I coach.
you have people that have been with you since their freshman year.
Yeah.
You know, you've been through a whole.
Well, this group who's will graduate this year, that's the first class that I was their only coach.
Yeah, you've been through a whole graduating class now. So.
And so that's a unique thing. And then the relationships of the kids in the school. You know, there's somewhere along the middle of the season, it started this. It was on Twitter, I think, or on social media somewhere. There's a picture of me that some of the players found a picture of me.
Yeah.
And then it's typed on. It says, "You just got beat by Chad Eads and the boys," and that's this little thing I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
My wife found it on social media, you know.
But these kids have pride.
But they had something that was their little thing. So it got to be our locker room. You know, I'd walk in and you just got beat by Chad Eads and the boys, you know. And now I can walk down the hallway and I'll hear kids yell, you know, Chad Eads and the boys, those kind of things. So, but that's neat because where else can you get that and get paid to do it? You know, you get paid to hang out with teenage boys, and that's been the fun part of it. And I think every coach will tell you the best part of coaching is the relationships with young people. The most difficult part is sometimes the relationship with adults. You know, that becomes the hard part of coaching.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to impart onto them as a lifelong mentor and friend and stuff like that.
Because where else because you don't get that in other places. You don't get that unless you're involved in something. Because you do. I know the common thing when you're the end of a season, when your season ends and you're in the locker room with them or at banquets. We got our banquet coming up in a few days, and there's always one or two that'll say, "Coach, thanks for everything." You know, and that always bothers me a little bit because I think I get to coach football. I didn't block anybody or tackle anybody. You know, I'm not going to get hurt on the field, you know, but without them and the things they do, there'd be no reason for me to have a job. You know, I wouldn't get to do the thing I enjoy, you know, so it's them that you got to be thankful for because there's still just as many good young people who are willing to sacrifice for something that they're really not going to get. They're not going to get any monetary value out of it.
Yeah.
A few may get a scholarship. A few may get something from it. They may be known a little bit around town, but there's
not all value can be measured with a dollar.
Value. Yeah, there's no dollar value for most part, but they're sacrificing for something, and you gotta respect that out of the ones that do it.
I think that's great. Couple last questions about the community of Gardendale. What is something that you love about Gardendale?
Well, and just starting with the school, just the connection between all the different activities. You know, I've worked in several schools, and you don't always see the connection between band and athletics. You know, between color guard and this other sport. There's not that respect of what we do. That I love the game of football, but also got to understand that band member loves band. You know, and I think that's unique here. That's a very pleasant thing to be a part of. You know, there's a good relationship between all those different activities that sometimes is a tough balancing act. We're sharing facilities and fighting for attention and, you know, all the things that go into, and there's a lot of very innocent parts that can change that relationship, you know, things that are done and perceived another way, you know, so you got to work on those all the time. I don't know, the community out here and how much they care about that school. You know, I think I don't know if I meet many people that didn't go to school there, and you run into people, they've been going to every game for 25 years. There's a lot of neat history there. You know, our stadium was built by a group of dads, and I think they started in 1963. You know, it's the same stadium today. And I think former players can come back, or cheerleaders or band, and it's the same. It's a different school building than what you may have gone to in the 1970s, but it's the same stadium. There's something about that connection between the past and the present here, and I think it's a community that understands the how fast it needs to grow. They're not just looking to, hey, let's build as much as we can and get as many things here. We're going to grow at a good, steady, that makes everybody comfortable and gives everybody a chance to succeed. You know, if we build 20 new restaurants, then 18 of them are going out of business because we can't support that many. But if we slowly build and do the things that grow along with this community as it grows in population, then all those things succeed. So I think it's been a great relationship between, and in our town, I've gotten to know the police chief and the fire chief and the mayor, and none of them pay me, so I don't have to. I'm not saying this to get more pay, but I don't know of a place I've been that has really good people in all those positions.
Mm-hmm.
That you got someone who cares about the community that they're in, and they're also a very good person to have in a leadership position over a
Mm-hmm.
city.
Yeah. What is something that you think Gardendale can improve on?
I want more people to come to the games.
All right.
Yeah.
You heard him. You better get your butt to the games.
Yeah. Well, in today's world, there's so much other things going on. And I'm kind of joking, because we do have great support. Our students do a great job. And,
Yeah.
but an athletic program is just like a small business.
Gotta have customers.
You're trying to advertise yourself, but you can't spend a lot of money on advertising. You're trying to take care of your employees, which are players. We got to feed them. We got to buy the best equipment, and we got to make sure we can get to the games, and we got to, and it costs a lot of money to run a sporting and an athletic department,
Mm-hmm.
and I think sometimes people don't see how much it takes, and that every person that comes in, is your, as the athletic director, of course, I'm always worried about winning, but I'm also looking at that bank account, making sure we can pay referees and pay for shoulder pads and helmets and all the things that come along. I think there's a lot of people that support, and if I just get them to come to one game, that would sure help us a lot. And because all the money that comes in, it goes right back into the students. It's not money that's used to pay me or pay coaches. It's all going right back to what happens
To
with
the
them.
program.
Yeah, it's going right back into, and some of it, football is kind of the mother cow of a sport, of an athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one that's got the opportunity for the most attention, the most revenue, because the band is dependent on our home games to make money off the concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go to a game. They got to get 6 buses to get to a game.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get 4 buses. We got to pay drivers. We got to pay referees. We got to pay the light bill. All those things. And it's and I think sometimes people have a misconception of that there's money given to these athletic departments through a budget somewhere,
Yeah.
and those things don't exist. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want them to. I don't want money to ever come out of education to fund my football team.
Yeah.
I want it to be self-reliant and to take care
Sustain
of
itself.
Yeah,
And
to take care of itself and not take away from the other parts of the truly important parts of education.
So some more participation
Yeah.
would be great.
Well, and to realize that you hear the term, all these kids today. You hear that.
Yeah,
older
yeah,
you
yeah.
get, the more you say that. My daughter's 23, and she said it the other day, and I said, "Golly, how old are you? Are you 80? And but if you can if you put yourself in a situation to be around and to get past the different hairstyles from what we had and the different dress, you realize, hey, they're just like us.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to fit in. They're trying to be a part of something, and you realize the more you can be around young people. I see a lot of teachers and coaches much older than me that sure don't act very old because they spend their day with young people.
So the world has changed. Kids are the same.
Oh, kids are exactly the same. And you can go to just about every school and see the same kids. They still want to be accepted and have friends and to be a part of something. They still want the same things we wanted. I want to, and they've got a lot more challenges maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but they still want the same things. They want to fit in. They want to find their spot. They want to have friends, and kids today, they don't see the differences between us. They get together, and if I like you, I hang out with you. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah.
As simple as that. They don't care the color of your skin. They don't care if your family's got a lot of money and theirs doesn't. They don't see those differences
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes we get forced on us through life. And that's a fascinating part to me.
Mm-hmm.
We'd had our what's called powder puff football, and it's all the boys coach and the girls play, and it's flag football. Well, that's a big event in a high school. That's a lot of smack talk, a lot of getting ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to the stadium and watched, and I thought, it's just kids from everywhere playing, laughing, kind of heckling each other a little bit, all in fun. And I thought, they don't care who's who, and that's the way the world's supposed to be. So we'll get around young people. It makes you feel a lot better about the world.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an excellent way to close it out. Is there anything that you wanted
No, but
to
thank you
end
for
with?
doing this, and thank you for representing our city and at least getting word out of how special it is here. And I think it's me coming here has been a blessing for me and my family.
Yeah.
It's given us the something that I get to do what I enjoy, and I get to do it in a town that I'm glad to represent. And it's I think it's an exciting time in Gardendale. I think it's the time that like I said, it's growing at a good pace, and but it's still small town enough to have that feel.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. And I'm hoping that something like this can help build a stronger community. People want to be more involved and stuff like that. So that's what I'm hoping to do with
All
this.
right. Thank you very much. Anytime I can help you, let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Your City podcast. I hope that you have enjoyed today's episode with Chad. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us out and support the show by donating on PayPal using the link in the description to help us keep making the show and improving it. This is our last episode for this season, focusing on Gardendale, Alabama, and we would love to do a second season of the show focusing on a new city. There's more that we would like to do with this idea, and we would appreciate any support in helping us achieve our goal of creating better communities. And thank you again for watching, and with your support, we will catch you on the next one.